Thanks for tuning in. This is Stomper Thompin, and in this video I'm going to show you my cargo trailer toy hauler conversion. I use my trailer for mostly camping and hauling ATVs and dirt bikes, and just as a general cargo trailer. So here's my journey on how I made mine. So I did a lot of research into exactly what kind of trailer to buy, and originally I was looking at some of the larger single axle trailers like 6x12s or even 6x14s that you can find out there, but ultimately I went with the tandem axle. Now originally I was looking at all the 7x14s because that's about the perfect size for a little bit of camping and hauling toys, but come to find out that would have been too short for my needs. So I've got a Yamaha Grizzly, and I've also got like a full-size dirt bike in there, plus another small little play bike, and all those machines would not have fit in a 7x14. Sure, you could have made it work by like tying down the dirt bike front tire and then putting the rear end to the side. You could squeeze in an ATV behind it, but there's no way I think there's no way I could have fit two Yamaha Grizzlies, right behind each other in a 7x14. So at the last second, I went and I changed my mind and got the 16-foot. That's 16-foot box plus a 2-foot nose on this trailer. And I am so glad I did that. That saved me a lot of trouble when it came to tying down my machines, which I'll show you a lot more of here in a minute. So one other thing I wanted to mention in my introduction is that I am working with a very limited budget here. I spent a lot of money on the trailer, more than I really wanted to, and I didn't want to drop tons of money outfitting it. Also, my carpentry skills are, let's just say, mediocre at best, not to even mention my electrical skills. So when outfitting this trailer, I went for just cheap, reliable, easy, and so those were some of my considerations going into this. Last thing I forgot to mention about the dimensions for my choice, I knew I was going to want a minimum 7-foot tall interior, specifically for my beds. I've got an ATV and some dirt bikes, and I plan on taking this thing all over the place, trail riding at various locations. Some of those locations are perfectly safe. I can park the ATVs outside while I sleep on the interior. But some locations, it's nice to be able to lock everything up and be able to sleep inside. That way you just have no issues or worries about theft while you're sleeping overnight. So with the 7-foot tall interior, I was able to do a bed system that can sleep 3 people, maybe up to 4 maybe, and have all your machines locked up on the inside. So that was a huge consideration that I'll talk about much more later on. So of course you want to prep your trailer, whether it's new or used, if you plan on modifying the interior and some exterior components as well. So for mine, since it was brand new, I just kind of went over everything. I looked at the underside, and luckily they had done a complete underside coating. All the wiring looked real clean, all the lights work. Of course, on a brand new trailer, that's what you expect. Everything was greased well enough, and on the roof, it is a multi-part aluminum roof on top, but the seals were all good and strong, and there's plenty of sealant on all of those seams. The exterior looked good, so just kind of go over those things. Those are some things to consider if you're going to be doing something like this. You just want to knock that out before you really start doing anything to it. So obviously you're not going to be able to see it now, but the first thing I did after getting the trailer and prepping everything and just double checking everything was I stripped out all the trim. So on the walls was basic 3/8 plywood with pieces of 1/4-inch trim that covered up all the gaps between the plywood. So they ran that, and I just stripped all that out and sweeped it up afterward. That gave me a nice flat surface on all the walls that I could start to work with. So step 1 was the floor, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this. Mine just came with bare plywood. It was all pressure treated, but I wanted to create a durable surface. So one of the more popular options online is epoxy, garage epoxy. So I just bought a 2.5 car garage kit, and I laid it down as you would on a normal garage, and so far it's holding up really, really well. I bought extra grit that I mixed in and extra flakes and stuff just to give it a cool finish and a cool look. Although it does make finding like a dropped nut or bolt a little bit harder to find. But so I did the interior, and then of course I did the drop down kit tailgate to match. So step number 2 for me was the walls. Now here's where you can do your insulation. If you are looking to insulate the entire trailer from the floor to the walls to the ceiling, this is a step you're going to want to do. I skipped insulating the walls, honestly, because I was just too lazy and I didn't feel like doing it. And where I camp, I've already had this thing camping, and the overnight was about 11 degrees Fahrenheit and I was perfectly warm. So I did not insulate the walls, but that's a step you'll do. Plenty of great videos out there on that. So I chose this very cheap, simple, like laminated decorative 4x8 sheets from Home Depot. I think they were like $32 a sheet, and I got like maybe 8 or 9 of them, somewhere around there. So that was just a really simple way to make the walls kind of prettier on the inside. They have a bunch of different patterns that you can choose, but this was really simple. I just used these simple little screws to adhere it to the 3x8 plywood that's underneath. That plywood, of course, goes into the wall studs. One thing you're really going to have to consider if you are going to do anything in a similar nature is like measure 5 times, plan out your steps way ahead of time, because you're going to want to make sure you remember where your wall studs are 16 inches apart, so that you can find your studs later on when you do go to hang E-track, or you do go to cut out your windows, or you do want to secure anything to the actual stud. So after I got all the walls installed surrounding the entire interior of the trailer, I went ahead and started to mount up the E-track system on the walls that I knew I was going to use for the beds. So this is pretty simple. Make sure to measure, many times before you drill these in, and just get everything sorted out and figured out before you obviously mount it up to the walls. So basically what I did was I determined how high off the ground I needed to be in order to park my dirt bikes and ATVs in here safely with the beds in the down position. So I did that. And then I also had to do some careful measurement up here at the ceiling, because when you are putting these beds from the down to the up position in reverse, you're pressing pretty high up against this ceiling. So you can't go, you can see I've got a multi-inch gap up here, maybe 3 inches. That gap is necessary in order to get these feet up out of these 2x4 holders on the E-track system. So you do all your measurements, think about it, and then just go ahead and drill them into the sides. I hung them up with these basic screws into the 3/8 plywood behind it, and then I finally got some self-tappers and I went into the actual metal studs of the wall. So the ceiling was still bare at this point, and I could see everything just fine before drilling it. All right, so next I'm going to talk about these beds just a little bit more. Obviously, there's a million ways you can do them. There are powered elevator systems, there are manual elevator systems. I just went for what was honestly cheapest and easiest and the quickest to make. And I determined that to be using the E-track with these simple little 2x3 and plywood beds. So all I did was measure out how much room I needed for a twin mattress and for a full mattress. So this sleeps 3 people, and I just made a simple little bed frame out of 2x3s and 1/2-inch plywood. Now on top of there, I did put a little edge guard to hold in the mattress, and then I put carpet on top and just kind of stapled this in just to give it a softer feel under there, so you're not, catching any slivers from the wood. But you can see how basic this design is. When they're in the up position, I just use 2 of these little foot holders. These just clip in, and that's what holds them up. They're just kind of free floating up there, nice and secure. But when I do put them in the down position, I make sure to put a foot under every single board to help support all the weight. So it's a very, very simple setup. And for the mattresses, I just got these off Amazon, 4 inches thick, about $100 per mattress, give or take. And they're like 3 inches of thick firm foam, and then 1 inch of a memory foam on top. fairly comfortable, I will say, all things considered. But yeah, the beds couldn't be simpler. They're a little bit tough to get up and down, but that's the price that I pay to be able to use this cheap, easy system. So it's pretty easy to move these beds. For this lighter weight one in the rear, I can just grab the whole thing, lift up, shimmy the feet into place, boom. I did take the mattress out for this, but you don't have to. You can just leave it in, do it in the same manner. It just lightens the load by a little bit. And then with this other one, it's a little bit trickier since it's a little bit bigger and heavier, but it's basically the same process. So you can just kind of stagger it down side by side. So next up is windows. This is a really common thing to do with these cargo trailers, and you've got a lot of different options depending on how much work you want to do. So I got just basic RV windows off of Amazon. The one for the door does not open and close at all. It's just solid glass, but I do have an accordion style, peasant blocker that you can use to create some privacy. Now, I don't want to get too close because I don't want to show off my super sloppy sealant job that I did. Again, I went quick and easy. I was in a bit of a rush putting this whole thing together. But for windows, all I would say is make sure to get the correct width between your studs. Again, you're probably going to be doing all the work from the inside. And then make sure to get the correct thickness of the window, meaning this way. So my windows that I got for this trailer are 1.5 inches thick. That's probably going to be the most common size. And then I ended up just putting 4 windows on the sides here with a 5th window in the door. And these all pinch and come up to allow some airflow. And they just pinch and go down. I've also got some Velcro here with some simple little blockers. It's just a piece of canvas material that Velcros up, so you don't have anyone peeking inside. One tip I have for the windows is you're probably going to do your cutting from the inside. All I did, once I measured and I used the window piece itself to trace out, the outline. So that's what I use for my cut line. You just take a drill in, take a jigsaw, and then follow your line around. You can always cut small at first and then widen out the hole if you need to. There's tons of great videos on how to install these windows. The one thing that I had the most trouble with was I didn't have a jig blade that was long enough. I kind of just used the ones that I had on hand, and when I'm sitting here running the saw, the thing would all of a sudden start bouncing off the sheet metal because the blade I was using was too short. It barely made it to the other side. So long story short, I went to Lowe's and I got a jigsaw blade that was like, 6 inches long, plenty long enough to cut through all of the interior plywood and the exterior sheet metal. So that gives you a nice clean cut. Installing these windows takes 2 people typically, because once you drill into the frame to create the seal, that's really what takes 2 people. So I would totally do it again. Having the windows is really nice, even on this really dark, cloudy day. They help brighten the place up. So the next thing I did after the windows was install these ceiling panels. These are identical to the wall panels, just 4x8 sheets of like laminated, I don't know what you call that kind of material, but they're just real thin, lightweight, easy to install for the most part. So this is where you really gotta pay attention to where your wall studs are and your ceiling studs. So prior to putting up this paneling here, I put blue tape down the walls for where my ceiling studs were, because the ceiling studs are a little bit farther apart, I think 24 inches, than the wall studs, which are 16 inches apart. So you can see here I got self tappers that are going into the ceiling studs, and so I just put blue painter's tape. That allowed me to kind of eyeball up exactly where I needed to put these self tappers when I had someone helping me put these in. So after I got all of the ceiling in, oh, I forgot to mention insulation. I did insulate the ceiling with that double-sided, just roll up, kind of like foil insulation. It's only about 1/4 inch thick. It's basically bubble wrap with foil on each sides, and that did help a lot with the sound deadening. That first time I took it camping, no, it wasn't that time. A different time, I was in here when it was raining, and it's super loud with just that bare sheet metal up there. But once I put that insulating material in, and then these ceiling boards, it helped tremendously with the noise from the rain. So, yep, I highly recommend like putting in a nice little cheap ceiling. And then after that, I just put in some trim to kind of cover up the corners. I put in trim where there was a gap between the two ceiling boards, and then up here in the corners. And then of course you can see where I put additional trim up here. It is not the prettiest. Keep in mind what I said in my intro. I went for quick, easy, and cheap. There's way better ways to do a ceiling like this. I was not going for pretty, that's for sure. Man, I hesitate to even show off my shelving unit up here. I basically just copied what other people did, but again, I went for as cheap, quick, and easy as possible. There are a lot of great YouTube videos out there that show you how to properly install some nice shelving in the V-nose of a cargo trailer, and I would highly recommend going and checking those out. I just did basic 2x4s, and you know, I think I did 1/2 inch for the actual flat portion up there, and I did put a little vinyl diamond plate mimicking surface material on this bottom one. So that's just kind of where I'll store random items, maybe do a little work, maybe prepare lunch or something like that. But I did put in a couple tie-down hooks that secures my little fold-up table and my little solar cell, and that's where I store my jack stands and my wheel chocks and my extra step to get in and out of the trailer. And then on the side here, I just got these bins from Home Depot. These are pretty light duty, but they're pretty secure for the most part. So I store my window covers. I got some battery powered fans, which we'll talk about in a second. And that's just a great place to store like gloves, hats, light tools, and things like that. So after I got all my shelving done, I was ready to look at how I was gonna anchor down my machines. So you've got 3/4 inch plywood on the bottom. That's what your floor is made of. And you can see, it's gonna be impossible to see with this GoPro, but you can see where the self-tappers are, where they screwed the actual plywood into the floor joists, or whatever you want to call them, the floor supports, that steel on the bottom. So I found those, and then I parked in all my machines inside of the trailer, and then I just kind of marked out with blue painter's tape where those floor supports were that I could self-tap into, and then I just used E-Track to do that. So I put some E-Track in the front for the dirt bikes. I got these cool little nifty dirt bike chocks that just pop out in and out. That's the beautiful thing about this E-Track system, is that I got a package of these tie downs. You can put these on the floor, you can put these on the wall, use them to hang stuff. They're very similar to the feet for the beds. You just use your finger. So these dirt bike chocks things up here in the front, they hook and unhook in the same way that these simple little clips do. So I measured everything out. I put just a couple extra ones back here. So this is where I tie the front of the ATV down. And of course, this is where I tie the rear of the ATV down. And with these movable clips, it just gives you a few options when you are hauling cargo that's not ATVs or anything. It gives you a few tie-down options. So I might actually run some more E-Track down the sides just to give me that many more tie-down options for other types of cargo. My trailer did not come with a spare, so I got this little mounting bracket off Amazon. Kind of tough to see back there. But simple little mounting bracket. It comes with all the hardware, and I bought the same size rim and tire that came with this trailer. I just got this pre-mounted off Amazon, so it came mounted and balanced, and I just bolted that up to the wall. So for a power source, again, I tried to go really just cheap and easy. So instead of doing a solar setup where I install some panels and batteries and an inverter and all that and kind of run some wiring with a permanently mounted solution, although that would have been cheaper, I decided to go with these portable power stations. I guess you can also call them solar generators, since you can charge them with a solar panel. I got one off of Amazon to do that with. But what I love about these is that they provide good, solid power that you can take with you anywhere. They also have a lot of protection built in. This is my larger unit made by a company called Opez, and this one puts out something like, I can draw something like 1,200 sustained watts off of this thing, and it has a surge of approximately 3,300 watts. So you can sit here and run a box fan for like a day and a half, or you can run a heated blanket for several hours, or you can run a really small electric heater for several hours. I've also got a smaller unit up here in front. This one's much lighter weight. This one's made by Anchor. They make tons of different sizes. Right now I'm just running my ceiling lights off of it, and you can see here that it's drawing a total of 6 watts. I'm running 2 LED light strips. So I plugged in my air mattress pump into this thing. It's great. You can just take it from tent to tent and plug up all your air mattresses, no problem. You can run a box fan off of this small unit. This one only puts out about 200 sustained watts with a peak surge of like 250-ish. But I use these 2 units and they've been great to me so far. It's just a real simple power source solution that makes it very easy. And I briefly mentioned it, but here's my lighting. I got the 2 LED strips. They light it up plenty enough here at nighttime. Plus my 2 power sources have lights on them. You can see that one's on, and that one's got a nice soft yellow light that's perfect for nighttime. I got a 3rd LED strip up there too that's just not plugged in right now. So this project's definitely not done. There's a lot more things I want to do. I've got some shelving I want to put in there, some additional shelving I should say. I may or may not get the folding jack stands to allow me to level the trailer once I do find a camp spot. And there's a few other things, like I've got a screen that I'm gonna install here on the entryway, and I might purchase a garage door screen to put in the back here. That's just great for the summertime. But yeah, it's a great unit, great for simple camping. I don't have a commode set up or anything like that, but you can just get one of them simple like bucket style ones if you really need to. But yeah, I love it. I still got a lot of plans with it, perhaps an awning. But yeah, that's my basic unit. All right, thanks for watching, everybody.